Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel, Truth in Motion Studios. Today we will talk about what scares toxic leaders. So I started grad school and my first course was on leadership theory, and my essay for the completion of the course, you might guess I decided to write about my cult leader and my cult situation and apply the lessons that I've learned, basically the what not to do, to the education system. So I have analyzed my experiences in the cult from the leader perspective, from the follower perspective. I've covered motivation, vision and mission, and all sorts of different dynamics, and I decided to today share with you on the follower aspect, because that is really the most, I think, empowering one for people to think about that are, well, lay people that are looking for others to tell them, to help them, right? To tell them to make better decisions in life, to get closer to God, which that's why people usually go to church or splinter groups, parachurches, whatever. Especially in the evangelical world, there's a lot of these mentorship dynamics going on. And if you are in some kind of a position where you know there's a hierarchy, I am not at the top, I am more in the lower aspects, I'm looking up and people are talking down to me as nice as they can or whatever, but you're clear you're not the one that has the last word, you're the one who's being obedient when there's a last word given. That is a leadership follower dynamic. It might not be called specifically that, but usually that is it. So today I will share with you what I have analyzed and learned about what scares toxic leaders. Because obviously this book is a lot of, this book I wanted to share with you is The Leadership Experience. It's an expensive book by Richard L. Daft. I'm using the 7th edition, and it's an academic book, so not like a self-help $20 book. This is very expensive, so this is for school. So the very first thing is in a way a no-brainer, but what scares a toxic leader in a follower is if they are critical thinkers. That's kind of what it comes down to. If you want to be successful, if you want to be happy in a cult, if you want to be satisfied and have a good time, enjoy yourself within a system where you're the follower and your obedience is expected, then you need to not be a critical thinker. Very simple. What is critical thinking though? And let me quote from Daft. Critical thinking is thinking independently and being mindful of the effects of one's own and other people's behavior on achieving the organization's vision. So that's a little bit abstract. What it is trying to tell us is that you want to not just swallow everything, but you want to hold it into the light and see, what questions can I ask before I run with this? Who's benefiting from this? Whatever it is, right? And in a cult situation, we see this a whole lot, that people are being told such very extreme things. It usually doesn't start extreme, but it ends up being very extreme in some kind of form, oppressing you. So the example that comes to mind is when I traveled with the co-leader of my cult, his wife, and another younger one from our group to Bavaria. And this was all still in Germany. This whole thing took place in the West. So Bavaria is south and rather far away, and they have their own culture there and a certainly different way of talking German. They have strong dialects, people who are from Bavaria, and then come to other places within Germany. And apparently, people are making fun of them. So there's a sore spot for people who are from Bavaria that go out into the rest of Germany and then they're being made fun of. My honest to God truth is I did not know that was a thing, that like, everybody's making fun of Bavarians. I don't know, I'd never met a person from Bavaria before. That was not something that was on my mind, and I wasn't thinking of Bavaria in any derogatory terms. Well, so here we were in Bavaria, and we were walking the streets, taking in everything for God. And then I prayed, because it was prayer time, and I prayed a completely innocent prayer of, God, I'm so excited, we're here in Bavaria. And who would have thought? And then my leader stops me and says, you need to repent for what you think about Bavaria. And I was like, what am I thinking? I'm happy to be traveling here. I've never been here before. And he insisted that I then repent for having bad thoughts about Bavaria. And then, of course, that transfers to him because he is from there. So this is exactly the dynamic that is very, very painful if you resist. So I was a critical thinker. I was hearing what he said to me. You have resentment towards Bavaria in your heart. I was checking with my heart, and I was like, I don't think I do. No, actually, I don't. But that was not accepted. Okay, so there was not an option of it's maybe true, or can I repent when I feel it? No, that was not an option. I had to. I had to agree with him, and then in front of God ask for forgiveness. So that was obviously very abusive. It was toxic for me. The rest of the weekend was emotionally I was done, and I was in such a bad mood because of having to comply to something that I knew wasn't true, not understanding the grander dynamic. That was really it took a toll on me. And you add these experiences up, and then you learn, oh, when I don't resist, when I just say, when I just do, and when I just accept what they're telling me as truth, then I get out of it quicker. And of course that is very abusive and traumatic, and you lose yourself a little bit every time, and a little bit more. So really it comes down to, they will not tolerate critical thinking because critical thinkers get other people to think critically too. So let me give you the 4 main categories of followers. There's the alienated follower, the conformist, the pragmatic survivor, and the passive follower. And then of course there's also the effective follower, which really was my cult leader's second in command, the co-leader. The effective, let's start there. The effective follower is the one who is somewhat thinking critically, but really runs with the program, loves it, gets the job done. And that's why I've in another video called him his wingman or his henchman, whatever you want to say. So the effective follower is the one who gets it and then runs with it. That is how I would have a question and I would get a different answer from one leader versus the other, though the other was clearly higher in the hierarchy chain. But then it would be okay. Like whatever the lower chain person said is also, if the answers were different, it would be okay. If I would be like, hey, I just asked the other guy and you just told me something different. And then he's like, oh, you asked him? Well, then do what he says, even though it was different. So there was a respect that went, well, clearly upwards, but it was also usually reciprocated unless the co-leader kind of got himself into trouble. Then he would be publicly humiliated, he would be shunned or punished just like everybody else of us. So then let's talk about the passive follower. Passive followers, it's like the husband of the excited wife who just shows up Sunday morning and says, oh, I might as well be here, I want to stay out of trouble, and could be doing funner things, but I guess if it makes her happy, passive, right? So not really being involved. And many people, not in cults necessarily, but certainly in abusive larger groups, the Pentecostals come to mind, the United Pentecostal Church, for instance, where the groups are large and the system is large and very toxic, very abusive. So passive followers would just kind of show up, would go along with it, and just not have a critical thought about it. They don't specifically like it, but it's all they know, and they don't know how to not do this. So that's where they are. And really, those are the ones that will pay money. You know, they will support the system financially, but they won't cause any problems. And that's really the follower that cult leader or a toxic person is happy to have. They don't ask any question, they cause no trouble, it's fine. The conformist is the one who has conformed, is not thinking critically, and needs to be told what to do. And is also great because foot soldier. It's the person who will do whatever you tell them to do, and they won't ask questions, they won't complain, because they have conformed to the expectation. The alienated follower is a tricky one, because the alienated follower just needs a couple more critical thoughts, and then they're over the fence. You know, they're on the fence, and then they're over the fence, and then they will leave, causing a problem. So alienated followers is really interesting. At the beginning stages of when my cult formed, there were people who were critical of the leader, but one by one they would disappear. They'd be gone, and it'd be like, where's so-and-so? And they're like, oh, they're not cool, I don't know. So we wouldn't really know what happened behind the scenes, but they wouldn't stay, because only the ones that were receiving the vision of the leader and keep their critical thoughts to themselves, better not have them at all, would be able to really survive, to enjoy themselves. Otherwise, it'd be like, what the heck, who does this guy think he is? Yeah, so that's an important thing to keep in mind. Alienated followers will take other people with them too, usually when they leave, and that's really for a toxic leader, a person who thinks they own the people. They need to keep them all and make the numbers larger. They will do anything they can to get rid of these people, making even a spectacle out of them, shunning them to the degree where you can't even talk to them, and really that's what it comes down to. All this stuff about don't have anything to do with the ones that we got kicked out. They're actually demon possessed, or they're evil people, they worship Satan, and they prefer their sin. All this stuff we were told to essentially keep us from hearing their side of the story and be affected by their critical thoughts, because thoughts are powerful. The one I haven't mentioned is the Pragmatic Survivor. So I feel like at the latter part in my group, I turned very much from a effective and then conformed to a Pragmatic Survivor. I didn't think I could leave, because leaving meant going to hell. So that's really not an option. I had accepted that this was what God had in store for me. This was the life that I had been given. And if I didn't like it, that really sucks for me. But I can't leave, because if I leave, there'll be eternal conscious torment waiting for me, and I don't want that. So I was pragmatic in the sense of I need to do what I need to do to not end up in hell. However, that changed. I turned more and more into an alienated follower, if you will, because what I was accused of again and again was rebellion. Rebellion, you're rebelling. And what does that mean, rebellion? Rebellion means, well, it was critical thinking. I doubted, if you will, that the BS that we had to accept all the time would serve anyone than the leader. So I doubted the vision. I couldn't, it went against something inside of me that said, this is all bullshit, horseshit, this is all just so many lies and deception and control and fear. Like, this is just not right what's going on, but I couldn't talk about it. So it came out in little ways here and there, and eventually this kind of critical thinking, which they call rebellion, got us kicked out. So what do you do? What do you do? That is my way of looking at leader and follower dynamics, and what I'm learning from all this is to say, do trust your gut. That's what it comes down to, especially if they ask you to go against knowing better. Okay, and I know at some point you don't know anything anymore. You don't know left from right. So I've talked about this in many other videos or vlogs. hold on to that shred of truth you have, whatever it is. If your critical thought is, I came here to serve God, which I believe is to love on people. Now they're telling me who I can and cannot love, who's excluded, which ends up being almost everybody that is not part of the group. And they tell me how that love looks like. Oh, giving money to the leader all the time. There's something there doesn't seem to sit right anymore. Hold on to that and then speak it out and see where that takes you. Will it get you into trouble? Yes. And that is the litmus test of any toxic group or leader, person, whatever, when you express your critical thoughts. How do they react? Can you leave? Can you not be a follower there anymore? Or is not being a follower there anymore leading to horrible things they tell you in your future, essentially keeping you from leaving because it's too scary to have to leave? So all important questions to think about if you have the ability yet to think independently. That's the opposite of groupthink. Independent thinking is to say, what do I think? How does this resonate with me? It's important to consider other people's thoughts and opinions, and they're powerful and they can sway us one way or the other, convict us, convince us or not. But to say I cannot do that because then I rebel against God, essentially because I'm rebelling against this person that is supposedly the hand of God on earth, that is the classic trap. What do you think other people are in other abusive situations and relationships where people stay in abuse and receive it and swallow it and essentially believe they are the problem for having a problem with the abuse? What kind of story are they being fed to keep up with the whole crap? Okay, so call out the crap and see what happens. And if it leads to you being told you have to die to that, you have to not believe that anymore, or you have to leave, then you know what? I would highly recommend that you hold on to that little bit of gut truth that you have and you leave. Okay, so that was what I had to say about who scares a toxic leader. And it is you and your critical thoughts. And I want to encourage you to keep thinking independently, considering what other people think, but going with what makes sense for you. All right.